Good morning and welcome to a brand new week here on Breakfast Central. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you had a good weekend and you're up and ready to start the new week. I am Olive MOD and you're welcome to Breakfast Central.
And I am Osao Giogbo. Welcome. And of course, as usual, we have the next 2 hours to share with you the major or some of the major conversations happening here in Nigeria with some pretty interesting guests. We encourage you to be a part of these conversations simply by following us on our social media platforms at News Central TV. And of course, if you're joining us via YouTube, do remember to also leave a comment in the comment section. And of course, enjoy the next 2 hours. We have a couple of things that happened over the weekend.
Absolutely. But first of all, just to say a welcome. I think today feels like the official welcome back to work, because by today, everybody's definitely getting back to work. Those who, if you're not getting back to work, that means you are probably either pivoted career paths or your office has decided to, bid you goodbye, to say adieu, papa.
To not start 2025 with you.
Okay, we're starting off the day with information about the former Petroleum Resources Minister Diezani Alison Madueke, whose repatriated funds, the United States government has repatriated no less than $52.88 million linked to Diezani Alison Madueke. Now, these funds were said to be from the forfeiture of the Galactica assets linked to Alison Madueke and her associates. We also have information that the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Richard Mills Jr., led a delegation that signed the asset return agreement at the Federal Ministry of Justice headquarters in Abuja on Friday. There have been various reactions to this. I saw a Twitter thread where they were speaking about this, and somebody was saying, why is it that it's Nigeria that you keep returning these repatriated funds to? On the one hand, you think, okay, it's great because you are seeing the way in which the monies will be used. For example, in this regard, there was an explanation of how this will be executed. The asset return agreement being executed ensures that the assets are applied directly to developmental projects. So, as agreed, $50 million of the repatriated funds will be utilized through the World Bank to partly fund the rural electrification project to increase the reliability and availability of renewable energy in Nigeria, I beg your pardon, whilst the balance of $2.88 million will be disbursed as a grant by Nigeria to the International Institute for Justice to support the rule of law and counter-terrorism project. So this is how they intend to spend the money that has been returned. Again, I mean, it just reminds us of the fact that the conversation about quote-unquote repatriating, expediting her return, to Nigeria to be tried in Nigeria has been going on for the longest time, and we don't see that happening anytime soon. I mean, if we go back in time to remember exactly how this case turned out, from her being sick at some point, to people down saying that this woman is actually living her best life. She's living la vida loca, and at the end of the day, will there ever be justice? Will the Nigerian people ever get justice in this case? What will justice look like beyond the repatriated funds? Does she really get to answer in a way that the Nigerian people will deem satisfactory enough?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I also as much as, I mean, for we to claim that justice must be done, then it has to be clear that there, is actually guilt. She needs to be found guilty first, to some extent. Seeking justice when there's no, there hasn't been an actual trial, seems a little, like taking too many steps ahead.
So it's like when I talk about her being extradited back to the country, will be if there's an extradition that occurs, so she can come back and be tried. Because all these monies being recovered, what's the explanation for all the money?
This is the first one. But, as much as I feel like it is important. So the story has also come with a lot of doubt, even from, let me get his name, the U.S. Ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills. He also mentioned, in response to this story, that he hopes that there would be accountability as well as careful monitoring of the returned funds, which basically would make you, sense that these people understand that previous funds, even from the former military leader, Sani Abacha, that have been returned to Nigeria, Nigeria can't necessarily account or beat its chest as a country and say that all those funds have been put to good use, like they, were supposed to. This one now is going to be going through the World Bank, it's meant to be used for rural electrification, which again points to the fact that very likely there's a lot of distrust with the Nigerian government with these funds that are repatriated into the country. And that is, a very, very, important aspect of this whole conversation that must be highlighted. So yes, as much as, Nigerians want to see that these funds are brought back, and of course, people like Diezani Madueke are made to answer questions. I also do not want it to be another distraction, because I saw that, Chief Lateef Fagbemi, when he was responding to this, said that this is going to be another win in the fight against corruption and somewhat. But once again, I want to reiterate that as much as you repatriate funds and as much as you get money back from people who are stealing Nigeria's money, it is not necessarily fighting corruption. And I've spoken about this many times, that we need to be able to set up systems that prevent people from actually stealing. We need to make it hard for a person to take, certain amounts of money from Nigeria and move them to accounts abroad. We need to make it difficult for a governor, for a senator, for any top political leader in Nigeria, no matter what level the person is, to be able to divert funds, from government coffers to private accounts. I remember when the Better Edu thing happened, and a lot of people were talking about how easy it was. Unfortunately for her, it was quickly discovered. But the point is, we would celebrate this one as a country and say, and the Tinubu government would definitely celebrate this one as a win in the fight against corruption. And I want to once again reiterate and remind Nigerians that this is not fighting corruption. This is getting back money. And I want you to then imagine the amount of money that have been taken by politicians and government officials in Nigeria that have not been found, have not been traced, will never come back, will never be traced. And that for me is where the main issue is. If you remember the report that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago about the I can't remember how much it was, but it was in trillions of naira that had been stolen from Nigeria. Those funds will almost never come back. They've been used for many things. They've used to build houses, used to buy businesses, move to accounts abroad. They would almost never come back. And that for me is the key thing. How do we set up systems that stop people from stealing? That is the fight against corruption. Arresting Yahoo boys, repatriating money, yes, they're good things, but it is not the actual fight against corruption. If we do not prevent these things from happening in the first place.
All right. And I think that's the most important thing, being able to set up systems and structures that deter people from stealing in the first place, as opposed to, so that's us being more proactive than reactive. Okay, let's move on to another story that was a top story from the weekend. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has officially signed an order that strictly prohibits members of Nigeria's military from participating in the LGBTQ activities, tattoos, body piercings. Now, this directive was contained in Section 26 of the revised Harmonized Armed Forces Terms and Conditions of Service signed by President Bola Tinubu on December 16, 2024. Now, if you go through some of the details and the expectations, here you will see that an officer, he or she is not to belong to or engage in activities of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or trans, queer, or questioning intersex, asexual, or gender two-spirit group, and cross-dressing, amongst others. An officer must not engage in body piercing and tattooing any part of his body. An officer shall not engage in any form of disorderly behavior, brawl, or any action of public disgrace. An officer must not at any time be drunk, whether on or off duty. The condition also forbids the involvement of officers in amorous relationship with subordinates or the spouses of the subordinates. So I think this then raises the question about why this needed to be official, especially looking at the fact that in Nigeria, for example, Nigeria has explicit laws against homosexuality. Interestingly, as Nigeria has laws against homosexuality, many would ask that why did they need to sign an official order? Maybe, one would see that even though Nigeria has an explicit law against homosexuality, we can see that the cross-genders and the cross-gender lifestyle is in a way it's frowned upon, but it still happens. It happens in the comedy skits. It happens in everyday reality with the likes of Bobrisky, who have promoted that, but have not really been able to be officially pinned down to something. So I guess that's what what the army is trying to discourage. But then again, you look at the law against tattoos, and I was looking and doing a comparison with the US. The US was very strict with laws against tattoos. The US had like specific regulations where they would tell you can only have one tattoo on your ring finger on one hand, you know, and you can only have a tattoo on maybe on your neck that cannot extend more than an inch to each side. They started to become very, a little more flexible in the last 2 years. I think it was because there was a case of a woman, Samoan woman who had tattoos from her wrist, like I saw the picture, tattoos of her wrist down to her nail beds, and had to sort of get permission to be able to carry those tattoos. So even in the US, they're very strict about body piercings. But I certainly do think that a number of the code of conduct that has been approved or, you know, approved here or signed upon in terms of the brawling, I mean, the fights, the getting drunk, whether on or off, are things that you would assume typically that members of the...
Like, why do you need to make a new law?
Yes, like you should typically know. But, I mean, now it's official.
The Army's code of conduct, you know, already has some of these
exactly.
things. So, already.
I'm hoping that whatever, they must have seen a lacuna somewhere. There must have been a reason. Maybe there's been an argument about this. There's nothing. People have been able to find, sort of weave their way, meander their way around it without being able to be pinned down to something. So maybe this then makes it legal or legitimate. I expect that international bodies will maybe contest this because of the LGBTQ section, but I guess time will tell.
When I read it, you know, I had pretty much the same reaction that most people had, you know, that why is this news? You know, why do we need to go, you know, to this extent? Because again, the Armed Forces Act, you know, already prohibits a couple of these things. I think someone pointed out that, you know, Section 214 of the Criminal Code, 284 of the Penal Code, Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, and also state Sharia laws, the Armed Forces, you know, Act as well, already, you know, prohibits, you know, some of all these things. So I'm not sure why the president needed to, you know, also put pen to paper, you know, on it. In America, like you mentioned, there's also been the controversy surrounding all of it, you know, with you know, Donald Trump when he was there, you know, making his views known basically on, you know, transgender and LGBTQ and somewhat, you know, involvement in America's military. I know that many countries had laughed at the U.S. you know, military when they saw a couple of, you know, transgender, you know, top military, you know, officials in the United States, and it was somewhat, you know, mockery, you know, that was pointed at the United States at that time. But again, you know, these are already existing somewhat laws in Nigeria, so I'm not sure why the president needed to go and put pen to paper on it. And,
maybe in the same way that there were laws, for example, against homosexuality, yet you can see that the trans community or the cross-dressing community is a very formidable one. It's a very strong one. It's growing, right? Growing, so maybe those are the things that they're looking to control, but I guess in time we will tell.
Also, I think, you know, just to be fair with the 1 minute that we have left, to say congratulations to the new President General of Ohanaeze.
So who is the new President General of Ohanaeze? Because from the reports we're seeing, yes, there was an election that held in Enugu, but there was also an election that held in Rivers. It would seem that there are two different people who are. The president has congratulated the winner from the election in Enugu, but there's also an election that held in Rivers. The Ikwe people saying that election was meant to be held in 2017, 2017 and 2021, and that is different factions and different zones that the leadership goes to. So it's been to Enugu in 2017, it's been to Imo in 2021, and that now is the turn of the Ikwe people. So they don't recognize the elections that happened in.
No, but Azuka or Mbata,
yes,
is I believe is Ikwere as well, and he's the one that was elected in Enugu State, you know, government over the weekend. So I don't think there's a lot of controversy. The only controversy that I saw was those who were saying or were arguing
that Ikwere people
are not Igbo. Yeah, I mean, there's bits and pieces of, you know, those arguments here and there. But again, I'm celebrating. I'm glad about this, you know, mostly because it once again shows the, you know, inclusivity that Ohanaeze Ndigbo, you know, carries itself with. Yes, you know, right after Chief Nwayanwu passed a couple of months ago, there was an appointment of I can't remember his name, Fidelis Chukwu. Yes, you know, was appointed to step in and, you know, finish his tenure. And then there needed to be another election right after Imo State to move it to River State and bring in Azuka Mbata.
So yes, definitely congratulations are in order for Chief John Azuta Mbata, who is now the President General of Ohanaeze Ndigbo. And we hope that he's able to unify Ohanaeze Indiwu and move the organization forward.
Absolutely.
Let's share with you our top stories this morning as we also bring you breakfast headlines. President Tinubu's appointments spark controversy, and there have been accusations and allegations of nepotism that have been leveled against him. SBM Intelligence's reports Nigeria's road to nowhere will be analyzed looking at the road infrastructure and the deficits there. Kano government commends the appeal court verdict, and we'll be looking at the details of this. And medical professionals seek salary increase, as they have really sought for a while here in Nigeria. We reviewed the newspaper front pages this morning on Breakfast Central, but now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
We begin the news headlines in West Africa, Nigeria, where the Nigerian Air Force airstrikes on Saturday mistakenly hit operatives of the Zamfara State Community Protection Guard and vigilantes and some of the residents of Tunga Kara community in Maradun local government area, Zamfara State, following a raid by bandits in the area. Media reports gathered that local vigilante and residents who had mobilized to defend their community were caught in the strike. So far, 16 bodies have been retrieved, with the final death toll still uncertain as rescue efforts continue. Residents of Tungakara are now calling for an investigation into the tragic error and for support to be provided to the affected families. The military authorities have yet to issue an official statement on the incident, but the tragedy underscores the challenges of combating insecurity in Zamfara State. And the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, late last year gave orders to residents of the Makoko community to move 100 to 120 meters from the power lines. This order issued is said to be about building control in all its ramifications and not about construction and demolition alone, but the welfare of the average resident. In this vein, a realtor, Femi Rogers, has urged prospective landowners to understand the intricacies of property ownership before going into development of newly acquired property. News Central's Bettina Whaley had recently paid a visit to the Makoko site and reported that sand filling was currently ongoing while families who live in the area battle for survival. Also in Lagos State, the governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on Thursday signed a budget estimate of 3.366 trillion naira appropriation bill for 2025 into law. Governor Sanwo-Olu gave his assent to the appropriation bill tagged the Budget of Sustainability at the State House, Alausa, Ikeja. Sanwo-Olu said the budget size of 3.366 trillion naira is meant for the continuation of the administration's giant strides. The event was witnessed by the Deputy Governor, the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly, other dignitaries, and many others. And out of Nigeria, in Central Africa now, the Chad's National Election Management Agency has certified the results of the legislative, provincial, and local elections held on December 29, 2024. Announcing the certification, the agency's chairman, Ahmed Bashire, noted that voter turnout was moderate despite earlier predictions of low participation. The elections marked a significant milestone as voters returned to the polls after 3 years of military rule. However, the process was marred by a boycott call from opposition candidates who continued to dispute the legitimacy of last year's presidential election, alleging fraud. Observers are closely monitoring the aftermath of the polls as Chad navigates its transition back to civilian governance amidst ongoing political tension. And also in the news, thousands have fled a town in southern Sudan since clashes erupted last week between the Sudanese army and rival paramilitaries, the United Nations Migration Agency confirmed on Sunday. The conflict in Sudan, which erupted in mid-April 2023, has pitted the forces of Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan against his former deputy, Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, who leads the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. According to the United Nations International Organization for Migration, in just 5 days, between 1,000 and 3,000 households have been forced to leave Rawaba, the town in southern region of North Kordofan state. Moving to East Africa now, a member of the Kenyan President William Ruto's cabinet on Sunday became the first to speak out over a wave of abductions of young government critics, saying his own son had been a victim. Justin Muturi, Attorney General under Ruto from October 2022 to July 2024, spoke out about the kidnappings that have enraged Kenyans for months. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights says at least 82 people have been abducted by security forces since massive youth-led protests broke out in June, with dozens still missing. Muturi, in a televised statement, said there had been a number of abductions and, in some cases, unexplained deaths since the Gen Z revolt of June last year. Despite being a member of the National Security Council at the time of the abduction, Muturi said he was unable to garner any information on his son's whereabouts. And that's all on Breakfast headlines. Let's now move back to Breakfast Central and continue with our top stories. I am Osaugie Ogbowan.
Welcome back. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors is calling for an improved salary structure for healthcare workers, expressing concerns over the refusal by the government to pay several benefits. Our correspondent Idong Joseph has more on this story.
Nigeria. The remuneration of healthcare workers is primarily determined by the Consolidated Health Salary Structure and the Consolidated Medical Salary Structure. These structures separate healthcare professionals into different categories based on their qualifications, experience, and job roles, ensuring a standardized approach to compensation across the sector. As of 2024, the salary from level 7 to level 15 averaged between 155,000 naira and 566,000 naira per month. Though public sector workers are entitled to various allowances such as hazard allowance and shift allowance amongst others, some of these benefits only exist on paper and are not fully implemented.
There are several emoluments that is supposed to come from the government to health workers, and some of these emoluments they are not seen.
Hazard allowance, which was increased from 5,000 naira to 35,000 naira, has not been fully implemented. I think we still get the 35,000 naira occasionally.
Health sector professionals are calling on the government to fully implement these benefits.
The salary structure of an average medical worker in Nigeria can just keep him afloat, not really to be too comfortable, take your children to the best schools or have the nicest apartments, or just live a comfortable life.
If there is an improvement in this salary structure, it may in a way serve as a way of encouragement to them or stimulate them and increase their enthusiasm concerning the workforce, the health workforce, so that better service delivery can be given.
Some others are calling for improved medical infrastructure.
As much as we want to create more health facility, have we thought about the infrastructure that will be there, the manpower, the health worker that will be, that will serve in this facility? So these things we should make it go pari passu, so that
all the sectors are, there are challenges. There's need for more money, but we have. We commend the government for even what they are giving already, and we want to make sure that we want to set up our sector, the civil society sector. We want to make sure that this money is well utilized.
With over 653 billion naira proposed in the 2025 budget for the health sector as capital expenditure, it is hoped that when passed, this investment will lead to better infrastructure than what currently exists. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Thanks to Idong Joseph for that report. Now, barely 4 months after President Tinubu's inauguration, the Arewa Economic Forum accused the president of nepotistic practices in appointing Yorubas, especially Lagosians, to key positions. This was followed by opposition parties accusing the president of what they termed Yorubanization, suggesting a preference for appointing individuals from the Yoruba ethnic group over others.
Other socio-political groups have highlighted the lack of federal character. Rights activist and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mike Ozekume, blamed the trend in favoring one ethnic Yoruba group in key government appointments squarely on former President Muhammadu Buhari, I beg your pardon. The pan-Yoruba sociocultural group, Afenifere, also distanced itself from what it described as President Bola Tinubu's bias for the Yoruba in federal appointments. Now, this morning, we're looking at the role that nepotism and ethnicity play in appointments and federal character, including affirmative action, which includes minorities. Now, let's quickly take a look at a list that was recently posted on social media. It includes names, offices, ethnicity, and the one thing that you can see in the list is the one thing in common. So if we can have that list, please projected on screen. If you see here, President and Commander-in-Chief, of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Right after him, you see the Chief Justice, the Chief of Army Staff, Inspector General of Police, DG, Department of State Services, and the list goes on and on. And in that list, you can see that all of them are Yoruba. That's the one thing that we can see in the list. And this, of course, has garnered a lot of criticism. This morning, we're joined by Professor Tukur A. Mohammed Baba, former Dean of the Faculty of Social and Management Sciences, Federal University, Benin, Kebbi. He's now the National Publicity Secretary for the Iowa Consultative Forum. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Also joining us is a member of the Old Ohazara Progressive Organization member, and he's also a current member of Ohanaeze Indiwu, Mr. Okore Justice. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, dear.
All right, let's begin the conversation. I'll start with you, Mr. Justice, to ask exactly what your thoughts are regarding the allegations of nepotism. The Constitution provides for federal character, which ensures that there's adequate representation. And do you think, from what you've seen, that the current administration, in its appointment, embodies federal character?
Well, from the clip that you just showed, I think there's no gainsaying that nepotism is gradually taking root in the governance in Nigeria. Looking at it, and I wouldn't want anybody to see it from the angle of politics or from any angle of bias. But then there's no way you can avoid it. If you bring people here to make certain arguments, many people will also take positions from a biased point of view. Bias in terms of the same ethnicity that we are discussing. Somebody will come, if the person is from a certain ethnicity, he will definitely feel that all he needs to do is to defend his ethnic group. But for me, and that is what my people are known for, the Igbos are not people who so much practice ethnicity. A typical person from Southeast would want every other person that is involved to have a fair share of whatever is happening. So, but then in the present regime, I will not be critical of Mr. President in terms of bias, but I will objectively look at his appointments and all that. And if you look at it critically, you can see it is definitely very lopsided, and it is highly tilted towards the Yoruba ethnic nationality. And that is that. Maybe he is taken after the immediate past regime that really won the Guinness Book of Record on that. While we were all shouting about it, we thought that the present government would do a little rejigging and try to do a little better than that. Aside, I am not this this type that thrive in ethnic jingoism, kind of somebody he must be this or he must be that. I would rather prefer that people who have capacity to do anything should be put in such positions so that we can actually, gain the best of whatever they can do, assemble people of competence so that they can deliver. But the question is, when you're assembling these people of competence, every other ethnic group or nationality in Nigeria has equally very good and very qualified persons that can man any political position and will be able to justify their presence, their manning or their headship of such positions. So I believe Mr. President needs to do a little bit more, look through his appointments, and then show some additional level of consideration, so that every person will have that full sense of belonging. That's it. The appointments as they are now, they are truly lopsided. Anybody who says they are not is not telling himself or herself the truth.
Yeah. All right.
That's my take.
Let's bring in Professor Tukur here. Professor, do you agree with this? We've also heard about competency, which of course a lot of people would say matters more. But do you agree that this administration has also shown high levels of nepotism, and how much of a problem would you say it is for you?
Thank you. I think there is no doubt. I would agree with the last speaker at least one point, that there is a lot of loop-sidedness in favor of an ethnic group, and in this particular case, the Yoruba ethnic group. Unfortunately, we have found ourselves in Nigeria in a situation where government positions are seen as a putty, so that whoever is in a position, whatever area is in position, they try to put their considerations above others. Certainly, there are constitutional provisions that guard against that. Unfortunately, the Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, states that all appointments must reflect the ethnic, religious, and other characteristics of the unit, either at the local government level, at the state level, or the federal level. Unfortunately, there is no provision for court action on it, which means you cannot take the government to court for loop-sided appointment, because it says the provisions are not justiciable. That is one. Number two is a character of emerging societies, so to speak. Societies undergoing transition from one system to another. Now, it's practiced all over the country. It's not just the Yoruba, it's not just the Southwest. It has happened in the North, as we have said. But what is different here is elevating the factor of ethnicity over and above everyone, except everything else. Certainly, the last regime before this one was lopsided in its appointment, in its projects, and so on. But that reflected more of regional rather than tribal or ethnicity, in the sense that, yeah, President Buhari appointed a lot of northerners into key positions, but those northerners were not necessarily ethnic. They were not necessarily Hausa Fulani, they were not necessarily people from Daura. They are not necessarily one specific tribe, but there is a departure in this region. There is no doubt that it's tilted in favor of one tribe, the Yoruba tribe, but also, you see, the problem has to do with the nature of the state. It has to do with the politics we practice. Yeah, there is, as the last speaker said, in every part of this country, of any tribe, of any religion, of sect, and so on, you will find competent people to appoint to positions of power and authority and other responsibilities. But also, we need to take into consideration the nature of the appointment. Oh, yes, I have seen figures. For example, that the president has appointed about 8 positions given to the northwest of Nigeria, for example. But if we look at the list, there is a lot of ingenuity in it. For example, NYSC was listed as a security agency, for God's sake. You know, they listed EFCC and so on. These are agencies, but they are not necessarily security, and so on. So to go back to the point, I think it has to do with the nature of politics we have, and a lot of political scientists have spoken about it, pre-pendal politics, so that people are in, the general trend is that people are in positions of power and authority for themselves, for their region, for their primordial characteristics. But the truth of the matter is, these are more of manipulations of ethnic characteristics rather than the true favoring of those same characteristics. Let me go back to former President Buhari, for example. Yes, he appointed certain northerners to key positions, but of what effect? In the security sector, the North has not fared well. In infrastructure, you can say other parts of the country have fared more than the North. I can list many projects. Take Kaduna, Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria, and Kano highway. I mean, this is something he spent 8 years without achieving much. And the Kaduna Abuja highway, for example, is basically a death trap. So it's not what people bring to the office, it's what they do that matters. Unfortunately, in our case, if people come to positions, they look after themselves, and that is what makes matters work. In this regime, what is fueling this feeling is the allocation of the resources. If you go through our budget, the kind of provisions that are made for Lagos State, where the president is from, for example, is in contradiction to what other parts of the country are getting. Major projects are located in that region. They control major, so to speak, I think we call them lucrative or juicy positions. Finance, right. Central bank, and so on. This is what makes matters. And what it does is to undermine confidence. What it does is to make people disillusioned that whoever comes to power will take care of themselves. But this is not the first time there is a president. The former secretary, one-time secretary to the federal government, Pius Anyi, for example, is well known for appointing Igbos to major positions within his office. But like I said, it happens at all levels of governance, local, state, and federal.
Okay, I'd like us to bring in Mr. Okore back into the conversation. You've heard some of the things that Professor Tukur had said. I also want you to react to a defense by Sunday Dari. When Oluyede was made the chief of army staff, of course, the conversation about nepotism had then kicked in. But then in defense to this here, and I believe that Professor Tukur spoke to that, he talked about it being dependent on the region and dependent on the area. For example, in security, he talked about the North having the highest number of appointments in security, being the security sector with 15 appointees, while the South has 7 appointees, making a total of 22. He also then said that the Southwest was more favored, basically explaining that different sectors had certain areas being more favored than the others. Would you say that this explanation suffices?
Well, I think the explanation from the speaker, he actually made a very logical argument in his statement, you know, talking about what happened with Buhari and the present government now elevating it. You know, that's usually what happens when if you start, the next person that comes in, you know, into power will now elevate it, and that's what has happened. But the truth is that I think within the country now, the people appointments are not even seen as vehicle to serve the people. Appointments are seen as vehicle for compensation. So you use it to compensate somebody that probably, you had benefited from, either politically, financially, or whichever way. Or somebody that did you a favor sometime, and now you are in power, you remember them and you want to, it is payback time. And then you know that actually most of the time, the people you originally or fundamentally interact with are more of people from your own area. So assuming in your life you have met with 1 million people, more than 500,000 of them most likely will be people from within your community or your ethnicity. So you pander towards, time to do something. And also when you reach home, your people are also there. They will be reminding you that now that you have this power, it is our time, or it is our time. So instead of positions being for the people to actually use it to serve the nation and serve the entirety of the people the nation that you're talking about. No. It is for sharing of resources. Like they say, the national cake. The national cake is baked and it is shared. And the people, they only come in there to look at how much comes in and to see how much of it they can take down. After, lining their pockets, what is remaining, they will try to, impress their own people, and that will be it, rather than giving service to the nation and to the peoples of the nation, knowing that Nigeria is not owned by one person. Even in elections, a particular ethnic group cannot successfully elect any president of Nigeria. And so we are talking about balance. In this appointment, there should be balance. And I think that was the exact reason our leaders were able to come up with the Federal Character Commission. Now, the Federal Character Commission, most of the time, I think they are all skewed largely against certain people. In those days, when I was in the university, I schooled in Uniport, and in University of Port Harcourt, you will see some people coming from the north. Because of federal character principle, some other people will score 300 and 200 and then you will see a few people will come from the north that did not even score up to 100. They will give them admission. Why? They will say they are educationally disadvantaged states and all that. Why? Which is a very novel thing. Those people are brought in from there, and they are able to come and interact with others. And from there, by the time they graduate, there is something that they take back to their communities, and it helps in the development of the country. But the thing is that it is skewed towards one particular, it is skewed negatively. Like in those other places, you seldom will see them consider people from my particular tribe in those other northern areas to give them concession. They will not give them any concession. But in our own part, we give them concession. But there, you have to go through hell for them to give you admission. So that is the thing. In all the parastatals, in all the ministries, whatever happens is once the Oga at the top is from a certain area, you can be very sure that place for that season will be people from the area where he is coming from.
So what you're saying is simply is that this is, it's something that happens across Nigeria. It's not, it's not necessarily brand new, seeing that, these allegations for the current Nigerian leadership. This happens also in ministries, departments, and agencies across Nigeria as well. But I also want to ask, in the previous...
There is something
kindly hold on. Kindly hold on. I just want to... Let me just quickly ask this.
It is minimally practiced in Southeast.
Can you hear us?
It's not as... Yes.
All right, can you hold on? I want to just quickly ask this. In the previous administration, the members, political leaders from the Southeast were, very vocal against former President Muhammadu Buhari about, nepotism, about sidelining, members from the Southeast in top political positions in his government back then. They don't seem to have the same view today, or at least their voices aren't so loud today. So would you say that things have changed with inclusion for the Southeast under President Bola Tinubu?
Well, you know that as it stands, things have not changed, not at all. Hello?
Yeah, we can
Go
hear
ahead,
you.
please.
Okay, things have not changed. I would even say that they are even getting worse. But the thing is that the Southeasterners are a very patient people, very, very patient. And then after you have talked and talked and talked and talked, at certain times, you will caution yourself, sit down and watch them. If they have decided that this is the way they will go, if they've decided that this is the way they will treat us, we won't kill ourselves, we'll wait for our time. And we know that my people will say, when you are holding a child, let me say biscuit, if you are holding biscuit of a little child, and you are holding it up with your hand, you will hold it until one day, one time, your hand will pain you, and you bring down your hand, and the child will take that his little biscuit in your hand. So that is one. Two, from a lot of things, a lot of rejigging that Mr. President is doing, everybody is still like hands akimbo, watching to see, trying to recover from the economic hardship that suddenly hit everybody below belt. People are trying to recover from it. People are looking at all the promises he's making. People are looking at all the settings to know if he's going to improve on what he's doing. So that our people are not shouting. Well, I don't know how you mean that they are not being vocal. They have been very, very vocal, like talking about Nnamdi Kano. Everybody has been saying it. Please release him for us. And the feeling is that if he doesn't want to release him to the Southeasterners, then what more can you ask again? If this simple one that he could easily do, and then he will appease the greater majority of the people from southeastern Nigeria, and then we'll start rebuilding the peace process and also see how security, insecurity that has ravaged the crevices of the eastern parts.
All right,
we'll
Mr. Corey,
having solutions to come up to that.
I'd like to interject at this point. Yeah, I'd like to interject at this point. If we do have some time, we'll come back again to speak about that. But I want Professor Tucker to speak to us about how we can find this balance in a country as diverse as Nigeria. How do we strike the balance between, merit-based appointment and federal character? Federal
exactly,
representation.
that is my point. You see, the federal character provision in our constitution, and of course, all the institutions that have been in place, the processes, the rules and regulations, is supposed to allow for equity, not necessarily equality, perhaps. It's supposed to allow for equity, for inclusivity. But I think at the bottom of it all, I don't want to be seen as defending one region, one religion, one tribe, or the other. You see, the major problem has to do with the failure of governance itself. The social contract between citizens and the state has not been fully discharged. You see, if there is corruption, if there is lopsidedness, if there is impunity, that is when people begin to go back to their primordial identities, religion, tribe, location, and so on and so forth. The average citizen, in my opinion, would like to see good governance, the principles of good governance, anti-corruption, and so on. And they would go about their business, pay their taxes without worrying who is in positions of power and authority. But what we have has been a set of elites that have been manipulating these primordial sentiments. It doesn't matter to me, for example, if a pilot I am flying in a plane from Sokoto to Abuja is Igbo, is Muslim, is a Jew, is a pagan, is an atheist, and so on. What matters to me is the competence of the pilot to fly. Like the last speaker said, if you go to any part of Nigeria today, things have changed. In any profession, for any calling, you will find people who are equally competent, who are experienced, educationally, they have achieved a lot in education, and so on. Come to the north. In fact, I think it's the other way around. If you go to higher institutions, state and federal in the north, in many places I've seen in my profession, there are more southerners than there are northerners. For obvious reasons, the South has advanced much more in the acquisition of modern education. So you find a lot more students from that part of the country. The North is still lagging behind. So to go back, I think what the problem is the nature of governance. If our government remains, if our system of government remains eating the national cake and not baking it, then we have a problem. If, of course, appointing people has to do not necessarily with their competence, but their primordial sentiments, then there is a problem. If people do things and get away with it without being punished, without being held into account, then obviously people will go back to the primordial identities. So that I go and tell people that I'm not appointed because I'm Hausa, Fulani, I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo, and so on. People don't ask themselves, okay, the last person that was of our own tribe, of our own religion, of our own location, who was appointed, what did they do? We have seen a lot of people coming into positions of power and authority, rather than favoring those parts of the country where they come from or their identities. All that matters at the end of the day is their individual selves, their families, and so on. And in my profession, sociology, this is characteristic of emerging societies. As people come into contact with others that are not of the same characteristics, they get frightened. It's a psychological thing. So what happens, one of the consequences of that is to go back to the tribe, to convince people. But again, I think the late Bala Usman has explained it very, very well in a very iconic paper he delivered on the manipulation of religion for social and political gains. If you look at the level at the National Assembly, in state assemblies, and everywhere, you find that those issues do not come in once people are in power and authority. Go to any market, for example, in northern Nigeria, you find a lot of people from different parts of the country interacting, not on the basis of tribe, religion, or anything, but on the basis of commerce, and so on. And you wonder, where is this coming from? It's coming from the manipulation of those primordial sentiments on part of the elite that are in positions of power and authority. That is the major problem. Professor. It's been said that the problem of Africa is not simply that of tribe, it's not that of religion, it is that of the nature of the state established after independence. What kind of state is it? What kind of processes are going on? And this is where you and I, the elite, come in to start tinkering with our primordial sentiments and so on. And I agree
Professor
with
Tuko. All right. I think you've laid it out pretty well, and of course this is not something that is likely to change soon. Our other guests also mentioned that it is not strictly in the presidency. This happens also in different MDAs across the country. But thank you both for joining us this morning. Professor Tuko Mohammed Baba, a former Dean, Faculty of Social and Management Sciences at the University of Birnin Kebbi. We also had this morning Mr. Okori Justice, Association Member of Ohanaeze and Igbo. Thank you very much for your time as well. We'll speak with you again soon. All right. Now, the Kano State government has lauded the recent judgment by the Court of Appeal in Abuja over the Kano Emirate Council dispute involving the reinstated Emir Mohammed Sanusi II, and other parties. The appellate court on January the 10th, presided over by 3-member panel of justices led by Justice Mohammed Lawal, had declared that the Federal High Court in Abuja lacked jurisdiction for entertaining the suit bordering on the Kano State Emirate dispute. Now, the court also called on the State High Court to re-entertain the matter under a new judge in the interest of justice and fairness.
The judgment delivered by the Court of Appeal Abuja Division regarding the Emirate Council matter involving His Highness Khalifa Muhammad Sanusi II and other parties. The verdict overturns earlier decisions by the Federal High Court and validates the government's lawful actions regarding the chieftaincy appointments and reforms in the state's traditional institutions. This ruling reaffirms the government's commitment to justice, fairness, and adherence to due process in our efforts to modernize traditional structures while preserving the cultural heritage of Kano State. The judgment further clarifies the rightful jurisdiction over chieftaincy matters, underscoring the constitutional boundaries of the courts in such.
And we'll bring you updates from Kano State and the Emirate tussle as things play out. Let's take you through a recap of some of the things we've shared with you in the first half of Breakfast Central, and also let you know what's coming next. This morning, we've spoken about Nigeria under scrutiny, the role of nepotism and ethnic politics, as the current administration is accused of, once again, nepotism. Kano State government commends appeal court verdict in the Kano Emirate battle, and also medical professionals seek salary increase.
And now let's share with you, coming up next on Breakfast Central, we'll be reviewing SBM Intelligence's report about Nigeria's Road to Nowhere report. We bring you the newspaper front pages, and we open the phone lines for you to share your thoughts as well. And we conclude conversations this morning with Which Way Nigeria?
Now let's take you through the newspapers and share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria. But before that, we're going to be joined by our correspondent Bernard Akede, who's on the streets of Lagos this morning. There seems to be a growing protest over unpaid salaries. Good morning, Brother Bernard, as popularly called. Tell us, what exactly is going on over there? What is the protest all about?
Usually, as broadcasters, we say we tell the news. We do not be the news. Unfortunately, the reverse is the case today. The broadcasters here at Lagos State Television, Echo FM, Radio Lagos, Traffic Radio, have made the news today rather than just telling the news. You can see behind me. Now, they are protesting peacefully in the premises of Lagos State Television. Now, the basis of their agitation is the fact that the new minimum wage, which has been put forward, has not been implemented by the state government, regardless of the several days or weeks of notice. They had given 21 days notice, they had given 14 days notice, and then 7 days notice, and today is the 14-day notice elapses. Now, there also have been complaints about not migrating their payment platform to Oracle system, which they say other arms of the government have been receiving their own salaries through this system. They say it makes it seamless, it makes it easy for them to get their salaries paid and for other things to be done. The gentleman who's speaking currently is the chairman of the Union Lagos State chapter. I'll see if I can get him, if I get to speak. Mr. Chairman, please come close. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would like you to please state your name and your designation, and then we'll continue with the conversation. Your name, please.
My name is Comrade Ismail Ishola Dejumo. I'm the chairman, Radio, Television, Theatre, and Art Workers in Lagos.
Okay, and I spoke to you earlier. You briefed me on, the reason for this peaceful demonstration in the television house. Could you once again tell us? We are live on Breakfast Central, News Central Television.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians and viewers at home. We, the workers of Radio Lagos, Echo FM, Traffic Radio, and Lagos Television, we are here in solidarity to demand for an urgent demand from the governor of Lagos State. And that demand has been lingering for long. and is the migration of our member to Oracle payment system platform, which will enable them to have prompt payment of their salary and to have full implementation of minimum wage. As it is now, Nigerians can imagine that the workers in this sector are not enjoying the current minimum wage, which is a matter of law. Our colleagues in other sectors have received their salary and other allowances accrued. So we appeal to Mr. Governor and all the relevant stakeholders in Lagos State to come to the aid of the workers in Lagos State so that once they migrate them to Oracle Payments platform, everybody will benefit and there won't be any issue in the broadcast sector. And the workers in this sector want to remind them, we are the fourth estate of the realm. We are the one that promote the policies and program of government in Lagos. And we should not be shortchanged or be maltreated. So we appeal to them, we appeal to their conscience to approve this graciously so that we can disperse and go back to our work.
Okay, I don't want to believe that this information was, sprung up or came up as a surprise to the government or the governor himself. Has there been any prior information, and what, what has been the conversation between the union and the government?
Before now, the union have served the government side notice. We have made series of appeals, a lot of consultations, meetings have been going within the local union chapters, and now they are not yielding to our demand. And we have served them from 21-day notice to 14 days. Now, the 7 days notice lapse today, which starts the 3 days warning strike as we propose. We are not going back. Once they accede to our demand, approve what we want, all of us will go back to our duty.
Okay, and finally, I know that this is a broadcast house. We have Eco FM, Radio Lagos, LTV, Traffic Radio, I believe. Now that the workers are out here, what is presently going on TV? Has broadcast been completely shut down?
Totally in line with our tradition, our service is essential to the public. We are the one that inform, educate, and enlighten the public about what is going on. And we are mindful of this fact. And that is why we are being very, very careful to ensure that the information we are passing to the public is being conveyed through our medium to the entire Nigerians. And that is why we maintain what we call skeletal service for a few hours, in which we are going to observe what will be the reaction of government. And if they fail to yield to our demand, we go for total blackout.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Right. Osaruge, you've heard from the chairman of the union. Such is the situation on ground at the moment. So just before I wrap up, the DPO of Alausa division was also here. She spoke to the chairman, basically just asking what the situation is and to ensure that there is peace and calm. Around me, there are other police officers. There are other police officers around standing just to ensure that everything is safe and that there is peace and calm in the environment. We're hoping that it doesn't escalate beyond this, but just as you heard from the chairman, if it does escalate and they do not get their demands, then it's going to be complete shutdown, of broadcast in all TV and radio stations from inside this complex.
Okay, well, what better way to start a Monday than a peaceful protest? Thank you very much, Bernard Makede, for, of course, that report. I'm sure you would also stay back and monitor it. If things escalate beyond what we are seeing now, do reach back to us so we can also speak with you again. All right. Now, let's take you through the newspapers this morning. We're joined by Habib Haruna, a public affairs analyst, who's going to be x-raying some of these major stories across Nigeria this Monday morning. We'll kick off with Olive. Yeah, well, before we get into the paper, if you can, in a few seconds, maybe react. You heard that report, and this is not the first time. There have been other media houses in the past week. Sound City has been called out. A number of media houses have been called out for failure to pay salaries. Dotun, of course, addressed this on X, on his handle, when he addressed his colleagues on Sound City, asking them how they are coping. So let's get your thoughts. In this scenario, they are asking for a transition of their payment platform and saying that if it doesn't happen, there will be a total blackout.
First of all, I'm a journalist before a public affairs analyst. And I was the chief press secretary to Governor Akinwumi Ambode. People should know that context. I think it's an unusual thing you are saying this morning. Lagos State is not a poor state in all ramifications. It is possible that there is a communication gap between the union, the leadership of the radio, TV in Lagos State, and the government. The Commissioner for Information in Lagos State was the editor of The Nation, a well-respected professional. So I don't think it's deliberating part of government, to pay them salary. That's why I said it's possible But I told you who I was. You know, when we were in government, I was very much involved in the way they run that establishment. Governor Modi made sure that everything they wanted was given to them. You know, we wanted to expand it for writing, but was not given a second time. You know, so I think there's a communication gap. I think the government will note what is going on. You know, they will establish rapport with them for the close of today,
right,
and it will be resolved amicably.
Okay.
I think so.
I mean, they've gone through
no reason for this.
I think they've gone through a very decent and respectful way. They've gone
absolutely.
I
like the way your TV. This is the way to report these things. Look at your reporter. Look at the unionists, their members, and the police. This is a well-reported incident.
Thank you very much.
That should be commended.
Thank you very much for that. Let's begin with the Punch newspapers this morning. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, serial outages. Dangote and NPCL, Total, 247 firms dumped the schools. Generate 6,500 megawatts. Operators blame poor supply for move. Federal government laments exit from national grid. California fire, Trump blames leaders for poor response as 16 killed. APC opposition differ on INEC's 125 billion naira budget request. Stampede, Oyo files murder charges against Ohanaeze ex-queen and others. Wow. Ogun housewife stabs husband to death for alleged infidelity. And we have at the top of the paper, PDP factional secretary set for showdown, vow to resume tomorrow. NAF unveils tough rules to curb MN's exodus. How Qatar intervened to save me from Abacha's gulag, says Obasanjo. And final story, again, 16 civilians killed as NAF bombs Zamfara bandits. We are back here again.
Yeah, sadly. All right, away from the Punch, quickly on the Vanguard newspapers this morning. OPEC quota eludes Nigeria amid rising oil output. Also, PDP crisis, fear grips Secretariat staff as activities resume. Obey court judgment, affirming Okoye as PDP scribe. BOT chair Wabara tells NWC. Emirship tussle, Bayero heads to Supreme Court. Christian elders chide Tinubu for attending Arab Islamic Summit. Serap drags federal government and governors to ECOWAS court over misuse of Cybercrimes Act. Just a few others. Repentant bandits seek forgiveness over atrocities, only in Nigeria. These are the major stories that we have on the Vanguard this morning. So let's quickly bring you in. I'm not sure which of them you want to just start with.
Let's look at the issue of the PDP. The PDP has been in crisis all this while. The NWC, which is the highest decision-making body of the party, they've been insisting on the party coming together in unity to prepare for the next elections. And they've also been approaching Wike. They find it difficult to sanction Wike, I don't know why. And Wike has been trying all the cool to destabilize the party. Now we have the Article factor. In Article 2 appears to be supporting the current acting chairman. And there's a court injunction that the acting chairman should stay until there's the next convention. So the crisis kept repeating itself. That is not a good way to be an opposition party. Opposition party should provide an alternative to the ruling party, to the ruling government, and also try as much as possible to form, to prepare for the next election. But the way we are saying it, the PDP is not ready. And that is very, very sad. If that's infighting in your party, how do you not provide solutions? How do you not provide alternative? How do you not criticize the government of the day? How do you put them on their toes? So that is my problem with that party. And it's unfortunate that Atiku, who was a founding member of that party, out of his own personal ambition, has failed to rally around the members so that they can come together to fight the APC in the next election. I'm not talking about coalition government. Alliance. This is the PDP itself that is a mess. And today, we're likely to see a scenario where two people will Zoom as the national secretary of the party. It does not go well.
Okay.
For both the ruling party, for both the opposition party, and Nigerian democracy.
All right. I'd like us to see as many stories as we can take today. Still on the front page of the Vanguard, there's a story beneath that PDP story, and it says repentant, okay, no, that's the Vanguard newspaper, not the Punch, please. Repentant bandits seek forgiveness over atrocities. Now, the reports have it that these repentant bandits in Benin, Gwari, Emirate, Buruku, and Sabon Benin communities, that they've appealed for forgiveness for the atrocities that they've committed, pledging to abide by a newly brokered peace agreement. Now, the reports have it that these bandits, a number of them have been isolated within forests for over a decade, and now they've expressed their desire to reintegrate into the society, and they're appealing to the government for support in allowing their children access education and facilitating their return to a stable government. Are you in support of this?
You know, the first time we are seeing people coming out to surrender and repent to what they have committed against Nigerian people, against their own people.
But is there, the idea of repenting?
The process of coming out to repent is my problem. How credible and transparent is that process? So when you now repent and you are forgiven, won't you go back to your old ways?
No, but what happens to the atrocities that were committed over the 10 years?
Even God forgive us.
That means somebody, so in response to that, somebody can come to this, let me not use the studio, but come somewhere, kill a number of people, and after that come and say, you know,
that's why I said it depends on the process. You know, the process matters a lot. The process is transparent and credible. Who are those involved? Who are the religious leaders involved? The political leaders involved? Military leaders involved? If all these people come together and say, okay, genuinely these people are coming out to repent what they have done, not all of them will be, I'm sure.
Yeah, but what do you judge? What process are you talking about, and how do you judge the genuinity of?
No, you can judge if these three segments of the society, the military, the politician, and the religious leaders, if they're involved, they are able to scrutinize their identity. Look at the thoroughness of.
Saruna, no society works.
No, it happens. But they've been doing it.
Yeah, in Nigeria.
Doesn't make it right, because actions have consequences. So if you are saying that people can come, kill thousands of people, and a decade later now say, oh, I repent of
it depends on
society, forgive me. And is it something that we can apply to all the...
No, how do you prove it that the one involved?
Do you know how many people are currently in prison that are apologetic and, you know, willing to repent?
In that case, that means if something as grave as terrorism, people that are known terrorists come out to say that they are sorry. And this is not to say, yes, it's been happening, but the fact that it's been happening in Nigeria, should we continue to do that? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
This is the same country that sentenced a man to death for stealing chicken.
Fowl. So
I mean, so if this same country couldn't find a way to forgive that person and say, okay, this person is hungry, that's why he stole. That same country is able to understand someone who has committed the act of terrorism, saying he's sorry.
I don't want to take it like that. Because you guys are a bit emotional with this thing.
It's not emotional.
And it's natural. It's natural. But
as I said,
there are many ways of looking at it. If part of the deal,
what deal?
Many things are happening. Look at Afghanistan. Look at America. Even the Hamas.
So
now I want us to. It happens all over. Yes, it's everywhere in the world. It's okay. We are related to those people. These are dead, hard.
No, but what we are saying, Mr. Aruna, is
hostage swaps happen over the world.
Those are hostage. So this one is a different case. This is me saying. This is them saying. Mr. Aruna, the question is, if it then becomes, we continue to allow this become the norm, will it be an excuse when somebody who has maybe been a part of those who have been enforcing the sit-at-home order, or maybe those who have conducted some killings in the East as well, if they come out to say the government should forgive them, they don't want to kill anybody again, will that suffice? Is it okay if the kidnappers too, who have been kidnapping and committing, ritual, the Yahoo people who have done E+, all of them now come out and say, we repent, forgive us. Forgiveness is from God, but crimes have consequences.
No society will develop if criminals are left to go scot-free. I agree with that. There must be consequences for actions. There must be enough capacity on the side of the state to prosecute people that are found guilty of committing criminal offenses. No, I absolutely agree with that. But there is also a soft part of it that people that want to repent should be allowed to do so. But the process, I said, she must be transparent and credible. Who are those involved in this? You know, if you said terrorist, that is a large swap of definition. Who are the terrorists? Who are the real leaders of these people? If they are coming to say, okay, want to surrender, I'm going to say that they should not surrender. The job of the state, the duty of the state is to look at them, scrutinize it, make sure it's transparent.
Surrender doesn't mean that you will not be prosecuted.
Of course, they should.
Yeah, so that's what they are saying. If they are saying for forgiveness and being reintegrated into... So that's what we're trying to clarify. These people here don't sound like they don't want to go, they want to be reintegrated into society.
It just means that if before you're to be given 30 years imprisonment, they can reduce it to 5 to 10.
Okay.
That would not to just go home. You have forgiven and go home. No society work like that.
Okay.
Anyway, again, the story says no, because let's not act like we haven't also seen where bandits, repentant terrorists were given cold Fanta and meat pie
and incorporated into security agencies
in the same country. I mean, so this is not new information.
They call it peace-building strategies.
Bandits, you know, if the argument, listen, if the argument is, and this has been logical, if the argument is that we have a group of people, they aided terrorists. They didn't necessarily kill anybody. But maybe they gave them pure water on their way to go and
information.
Information. And you say, okay, you want to give these people lighter sentences because they didn't actually commit those crimes. They were, you know, I mean, somehow, some way, part of your crimes committed. I would understand that. But if you are arguing that the terrorists can simply say that, oh, you know, I've given up terrorism, please forgive me, and then there's a process with which you... No country on earth, you know, developed.
Because according to the news report here, there's nothing about prosecution. What they're saying is that they're asking that their children be given opportunity to go to school, and they're saying that they will be happy if the government gives our quote, we'll be happy. We have lived in the forest far from city life for more than 10 to 15 years, and would therefore be happy if the government gives us sense of belonging and allowed our children to go to school. And they're grateful for the peace pact. So there was nothing about that. Anyway, let's move that conversation away from there to another story.
I want to talk about the Emirate tussle as Adebayo heads to Supreme Court.
You know, the appeal court came out on Friday that the state has responsibility of appointing emirs, local government and the state, not federal government. It's not a federal government matter at all. So, and the governor came out and said, now that the court has spoken, all the parties should respect the judgment of the court.
Yeah.
And status quo should be maintained. So the emir is now saying that now that we have spoken, we are proceeding to the Supreme Court. Let's see to his conclusion. And I think it's ideal. I think this is the first time in that memory that you see two people competing for that stool in modern day Nigeria. And I think the court is with the right
Why do you think that was?
It's political, my brother. And it's unfortunate. I was in Kano for 7 years. The emir of Kano is like a demigod. But when the emir is passing, you dare not walk. You come down and do like this. I've been forced to do it. It's Abangari. You know, so I think it's all political. And I'm surprised that this thing can be shrouded in politics. The emir of Kano, after the slaughter of Sokoto, they are revered people, you know, but they politicize everything. So it's unfortunate. But I think reasoning to prevail, the court intention should be respected, and Sanusi should be given his right honor and respect as the emir of Kano.
All right. I want us to take the story, and it's our final story. The mistaken airstrike. The reports have it that there was the airstrike reportedly targeted at neutralizing bandits, mistakenly killed lives of innocent citizens in Nigeria. We have had this conversation over and over and over again. How long will Nigerian civilians, Nigerian citizens, be collateral damage?
I think it's unfortunate that civilians will be casualties. We fall into these deadly strikes by the Nigerian Air Force. And I think yesterday the defense headquarters came out to explain what happened, that they are still investigating, that they've not really seen. It's not something that they've seen that happens, that was not deliberate. They've not agreed. The last one that happened, I think Is it Katsina or which state? They agreed that was a mistake. But the one that took place yesterday, where 16 civilians were killed, they've not come out to confirm the incident, you know. But I think it's two ways to it. These people should be very careful. As we are pursuing these terrorists, you should not kill civilians in the process. No one does. No people. There's no way you can.
But they are killing civilians. And at the end of the day, what we're seeing is, on the one hand, they will tell you that they.
But Punch said 16 civilians were killed, not allegedly killed. You know, it shows that they got the report very well.
Daily Trust reports it as 15 killed in Zamfara.
Killed, not alleged. So this thing is not acceptable in any decent society. But don't also forget, the second leg is that these terrorists hide in the midst of civilians to commit their atrocities. So it will be difficult for the Air Force, the planes, you know, to target those guys without killing innocent civilians.
Is our approach even working? Because I mean, I'm going to bring back the General Christopher Musa, conversation, where he spoke about the last 15 years of these people just, still being able to exist and arm themselves and function. So is this approach that we are currently using, is it even working? This one that is costing civilian lives that they will call collateral damage and whatnot, is that approach even working? Are we looking to continue for the next 5-10 years of still not being able to defeat these guys?
Ross, I also watched that video. Who is funding these people? Who is sponsoring them? I told you an incident last week in the Senate.
Yeah.
When the Senate president put it into vote, that we need to investigate how the money we are sending on these things, the money we are budgeting for budget, money we are using to fund this project, this fight against terrorism, how they spending the money. They put it to vote, and the nays had it. And most of the people that spoke against it were from the north. So 2 + 2 is 4. So this is not rocket science to decipher.
Yeah.
These people are not interested in ending it. It's a project. They're making money from it. And it will not end soon until the deliberate and assertive effort on the part of the president to put his leg down. Gentlemen, enough is enough.
Yeah. So what then? So if we know this, I mean, if this is true, if this is true, then why then are we just continuing this long process of military airstrikes and attacks at these places when back in the office they know that these things will not, it's not going to end.
Things don't work that way. There are many things that the more you look, the less you see in government. People that are supposed to approve the money for them, appropriate funds for them, they are saying that they will not investigate. We are doing our job as a journalist, to scrutinize what they are doing, to hold them accountable. But they are not ready to do that. That's why I said the commander-in-chief will need to be more decisive in telling these people that no, this thing must stop. You retire from office as chief of army staff, and you are establishing a university. And who is asking questions? So if you don't probe, if you don't hold these guys accountable, if you don't make sure that the money meant for buying arms, they are doing it, spending the money on the right things, we continue to have this problem.
Well, it's just really unfortunate that we keep going around. It feels like we're going around in circles. Not to say that our military are not doing work. In 2 days we'll be celebrating Armed Forces Remembrance Day, but we can't keep losing civilian lives over and over again and getting apologies. It's like, if the ISR being done, is it thorough? Did they get adequate information? Like, where can we trace it to?
Who is funding them? And the more the money comes in, how do you conduct an investigation? How do you prove the money going to the defense headquarters? You need to prosecute this war against terrorism.
All right, we need to go now. Mr. Abi Barino, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Just before we go, I think you can quickly comment on the story on the Punch. It's not a story. But I think you spoke about this last week, and that is the picture of
President Bola Ahmed
President Bola
Tinubu and
with
Femi Otedola.
I was thinking you guys will talk about it. You see, this man is saying, I'm now the chairman of First Bank. My duty and job is to protect shareholders and depositors. And when I opened the book, I realized that someone is owing us everything, both the principal and the interest, going to about $260 million. We told the man to come and pay. And the man is blackmailing us. That's what is going on. So that picture means a lot. It is in about 4 or 5 papers today, front page. So Nduka is using his own paper this day to fight Otedola. Otedola is a boardroom guru. You understand this game? That is what you are saying. And the way it looks, it will be difficult for Nduka to be off this hook. It's not a new thing that most of some people in this paper are not being paid regularly. They're paid them in arrears, But you don't do these things without facing the consequence. You borrow money, and you want them to be looking at you. You don't try to blackmail them. That's what I say. You can't blackmail me. I have a job to do. And my job is to make sure you pay that money. And the picture you are seeing connotes many things. That I'm in Dubai, I'm in Abu Dhabi, with the Nigerian president, the commander-in-chief. And there are many things going on under the water. Your enemies, the enemy of your enemy is my friend.
How do you see this ending then?
No, the man will pay. He's in a mess. This day publisher is in a mess. No, I don't envy him. He's been very, very audacious all this while, and he's dealing with people and using his platforms to try to hoodwink you or intimidate you. But this man is telling him that no, it doesn't work that way. They've been friends. But Otedola and Agbena have been very good friends in many ways, But if I were you, from the shoes of Otedola, I would do the same thing. I have to protect my investment, protect people that are putting money in my bank, which I'm the largest shareholder. I also make sure that depositors' money is not toyed with. And that kind of money, that's a lot of money. You borrow money, if you're not paying interest, and I'm only tell you to come and pay. They say, Oga, come and settle this thing, and started blackmailing them. It doesn't work like that. And there's a court order that all the money the man has in the banks, they should not give me a dime from it. It's only his tax credit now. And then friends to beg Otedola. And the man said, no. And so that picture shows you that, no, the game is on. We are watching.
HMMMM.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. As in, this is a really situation.
Thank you very much, Mr. for stopping by.
Thank you for stopping by.
As always, interesting analysis on these stories. We look forward to seeing you again.
All right, of course, we bring you Which Way Nigeria up next. Get ready, fasten your seatbelts for another hit shortly. Osage is ready.
Good morning, Nigerians. Now, a lot of times when we analyze the spending of government and criticize waste in government expenditure, many people fail to understand the gravity of it all. For the longest time, Nigerians have called and pleaded for a reduction in government spending. They've criticized the excessive spending that the Nigerian government used to run itself. They've asked to see actual steps being taken to show that the Nigerian government is actually serious about cutting down on its running costs. The current administration came into office, and within weeks, we put Nigerians into the deepest economic crisis and inflation that we've ever experienced. And then Mr. President said it was a time for Nigerians to tighten their belts because these were necessary steps that had to be taken. Well, Nigerians did tighten their belts, but the issue is that since that statement was made, there's barely been any singular instance where the Nigerian government has also shown that it is also tightening its belt. There's not been a moment where, for example, the government said, yes, we may want new cars for National Assembly members, but because we are cutting down on expenses and tightening our belts, we will not be buying new cars this year. It's just pretty simple. Or we may need a new helipad for the president in Lagos, but because this government needs to tighten its belt along with Nigerians, we will instead postpone that project till some other time. Sometimes it's just a communication issue, and they're just simple steps that a government will take, and it will be, Nigerians will see these things and understand that, yes, this government is playing along. It's walking the talk. But this government has failed to do so. And so this morning, to put into perspective the gravity of some of these expenses, I'll use some examples that we're familiar with. As the Nigerian government budgets 4 billion naira to build a helipad, John Holt PLC, that was created, what has created hundreds, if not thousands of jobs since it came into Nigeria, has a market value of about 3 billion naira. Put that in comparison with using 4 billion to build a helipad. The vice president's home cost Nigeria 21 billion naira, whereas the market valuation for popular mattress brand Vitafoam is about 21 billion naira. A whole Vitafoam. The Nigerian government allocated 55 billion naira for presidential fleet maintenance this year. Presidential fleet maintenance. Cadbury Nigeria has a market valuation of 52.3 billion naira. Vitafoam has asset valuation of about 50 billion naira. Your National Assembly budget for 2024 was 345 billion naira, whereas Dangote Sugar current assets as of September 2024 was 354 billion naira. So I'm sharing these things so you can understand the gravity of some of these expenses, and to reiterate that the current Nigerian government has really not been able to tell itself that it must stop spending billions of naira on things that have no benefit to the Nigerian people, but instead benefit just a handful of people in the executive or the National Assembly. It should also tell you that no matter how they spin the narrative, there's really no difference between this government and the ones that they repeatedly condemned to get into power. It's all the same thing. Good morning, Nigerians.
Welcome back. The fight to reposition Nigeria as one of the fastest growing economies, again, after it fell off the list in recent times, is a conversation that calls for swift attention. The need for a comprehensive network spanning roads, railways, waterways, and airways, which is crucial for national development, cannot be overemphasized, as it forms the backbone of movement and commerce.
Now, the deteriorating condition of Nigeria's roads had become a significant strain on the economy, costing billions of naira annually in lost productivity and resources. Take, for instance, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It has never seen completion, despite the billions gulped into transforming the road for better economic advantages. Recently, our partners, SBM Intelligence, came up with a report titled Roads to Nowhere, a bumpy ride through Nigeria's roads. And of course, this, detailed the lack of critical infrastructure and development with regards to Nigeria's road infrastructure across the country. late last year, I believe the Minister for Works, Dave Umahi, had spoken about the financial requirements to fix Nigeria's roads, the thousands and thousands of road projects that were, still lacking. He spoke about needing about 16 trillion naira for road projects, to put Nigeria's roads in better shape.
Right.
The 2025 budget, I believe, is just about 1 trillion naira that has been allocated for road projects across the country. So one thing that would always be pointed out is the Lagos Ibadan Expressway, which a lot of people have said is maybe one of the most embarrassing stories of road construction in maybe on the continent, even because of the length of time that it has taken to fix that one single road. And people would also point, even in Onitsha, people would also point out that every now and then you might see the California fires, for example. I saw someone react to it and say that the places that have been burnt down in California will be rebuilt before the Nigerian government will finish, some of these major roads in Nigeria. Which, you can't really argue with, because these are roads that have been needing help, and requiring construction for decades now.
Right.
It has taken 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even more, of these roads requiring assistance, and they just haven't gotten it.
Just to mention that it's not so, there's the potholes. Pothole is just one aspect of it. I mean, there was a report, I think pothole constituted 32.9%. There's also the security aspect, which is 25.6%. So there was a survey, this intelligence report by SBM it involved 245 drivers. So they pulled together 245 drivers from 8 major commercial hubs. And after running through all of this, they talked about potholes, 32.9%, and security concerns, 25.6%. They also talked about travel delays. And of course, some of the reasons for travel delays would be poor infrastructure, leading to extended travel times. Then there's also traffic congestion as part of a reason for traffic delays. And what causes traffic congestion? Poor road infrastructure. Poor road infrastructure leads to accidents. We were on the way to work this morning. We saw an accident on the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway. Yeah. So all of these, it's an effect, it's a ripple effect, one leading to another, to another, to another. I think I did also see something about certain train routes as well, like the commercial train routes, but we'll come back to that. They talked about security incidents and how many people had to pay for security. There were hotspots for thefts were highlighted. 49% of the respondents there face increased vehicle maintenance costs due to poor road conditions. Is why many people right now, apart from the fact that fuel is expensive, people would rather join their office bus or junk bus, because you're thinking, putting my vehicle through these roads will subject it to further wear and tear. I'm spending a lot of money with petrol. I'm spending a lot of money with maintenance. The roads are not helping. It felt like there was a time on the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, every morning somebody's tire was bursting because of a massive pothole. I mean, we see this pothole. At a point, we had to drive with knowledge of where the potholes were.
Yeah, there were two of them, actually.
Yes, two major potholes.
The toll gate, before the Lekki toll gate.
Toll gate, yeah.
And there was one after Falomore Bridge.
After that law school side, yes, there was one mighty pothole. So you just knew how to navigate your way. And the day you're not expecting that a brand new tear rubber pothole has emerged, your tire goes over it, and there goes it. I know how many tires I've had to change. And it's bad enough that we don't have traffic lights to properly light up these roads to ensure people see properly, because everybody's headlights, everybody has their full lights on, and you can't see the road as clearly as you should at 5 a.m. So there's several factors to consider. And then, interestingly, I saw that the Abuja-Kaduna rail line, was not, yes, it had a lot of issues, but there are other rail lines now that have been highlighted. Let me even just double check that while you say what you wanted to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, that I feel like we also have, it's maybe what we are used to, the standards that we're used to as a country. And that's why when you hear that a road project has been done for, 100 billion naira, 50 billion naira, maybe even more, a couple of years later, you start to see potholes on that same road. And it makes you really question the quality of roads that are being built, across Nigeria even. And if we also need to go deeper, than, simply just demanding that roads be fixed, but also demand that, Nigerians get the best quality of roads. If we are spending hundreds of billions of naira on these road projects, across the country, potholes are, definitely something that is very peculiar, across Nigerian roads, regardless of the state. even in the Federal Capital Territory, maybe not as much in Federal Capital Territory, but even in the FCT. So we also need to go beyond just asking for roads, but also demanding
good quality.
Yes, the highest quality
of roads. Because it's one thing for them to fix these potholes, and in another 2 months, the potholes have re-emerged again because they haven't used proper quality materials.
You see across Lagos that they are patching different parts of the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway. This is pretty embarrassing.
Right. I wanted to talk about insecurity, and I mentioned that earlier. The survey identified Port Harcourt, Lagos, and Maiduguri as the most dangerous hotspots across Nigeria's major cities and highways. Talked about high risk of theft, attacks, and road hazards. And then he talked about the Port Harcourt Warri routes, as this is, of course, the data has shown that during the review period, the Port Harcourt Warri route in southern Nigeria has become the most dangerous, surpassing the Abuja-Kaduna highway. And if you remember, the Abuja-Kaduna highway had a lot of issues. They were the ones that had the, the incident, the security incident in the train attack in March 2022 that led to the shutdown. Yeah. But here we're seeing that Port Harcourt Warri has surpassed that. Kidnapping for ransom, of course, forms a major threat. That's one of the issues that the roads have had to face. So it's not just bumpy rides from the potholes or bumpy rides from the traffic that the potholes have caused or the poor quality of roads, but also that the fact that people don't even know if they're going to get to their destination. If you're traveling much later in the day in certain parts of the country, your heart is in your mouth because anything can happen. There's issues of kidnappers who could kidnap you for ransom. So it's a really detailed report that I'm hoping that we can have a look into. We'll have a representative from SPM Intelligence join us maybe sometime during the course of the week, and we can break down the details even more.
These are some of the reasons why people I've repeatedly been asking about, and that maybe also one of the reasons that I did the Which Way Nigeria this morning, which is really to question if we are using funds appropriately. And if we don't have money to fix some of these roads or do some of these projects, then we need to look at the wastage that exists in the 2025 budget. It hasn't been signed yet, but just look at the amount of wastage that is already there and the things that we really could be able to redirect funds into. If we say that we need more money to fix roads, there's so many of those items in that 2025 budget that we can easily redirect into agricultural infrastructure, into regional road infrastructure and whatnot. But if we don't, then the 2025 budget will not be different from the 2022 budget, 2021 budget. Nigerians at the end of the year will now say to themselves that this budget has really not done anything or had any improvement or any effect in the life and the reality of the average Nigerian, right, which is what we are likely to see if it stays the way that it is.
We have to
Budget Nigeria did, a perfect analysis of the budget.
Yeah, we certainly have to go. But of course, we'll revisit this conversation. Hopefully, we can have someone join us from SPM Intelligence to break down this report, what the implication is, and what the next steps are. We'll be back again tomorrow. Stay well. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaugie Ogbon.
Have a good day.